but the title is, that you'll see appear, is Let Us Sing. I want to start with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche that said, without music, life would be a mistake. Without music, life would be a mistake. I think a service without music, wouldn't call it a mistake, but it would be unimaginable, I think. Amen. Aldous Huxley also said that the best way, or that comes closest to express the unexpressible or the inexpressible, is silence. And which comes second is music. Beethoven also suggested, and Victor Hugo with him, that music expresses the deepest things and that which cannot be expressed in words. The combination of words and tune is indeed something that, when we sing a hymn, that comes from our heart. When we embrace the melody, the tune, and we can with our whole heart affirm the words as well, the lyrics, that it is one of, I think, the moments of beauty that we sometimes encounter in the universe. It has been part of the religious tradition that we come from, the Jewish tradition originally, and then a branch from it, the early church, the Jesus movement that developed into the Christian church, where singing and music was part of the original temple services. The passage that was read, Psalm 150, is one of the collection of the Psalms, where it was firmly part of the service in the temple, but also when a pilgrimage was made, when you were on your way to the temple. There were certain hymns or psalms composed for that specific purpose that you would sing while you're on your way to the temple. We often read, and it doesn't come across in all translations, but if you look at the Hebrew, you will see that there are often indications who composed this psalm or this hymn, and also who would be singing it. The Korahites is one group of a guild of singers, or one could say a professional choir, that officiated in the temple quite often. And strangely enough, the ideal king, David, the great warrior king, he was also one that placed emphasis on music. And apart from the Korahites, there was a number of 4 other groups of guilds of singers that he was associated with in some form, and that he brought to the temple or to perform at the sanctuaries of the Jewish people. His son Solomon is credited with building the temple, but David supported and apparently did some good work in creating the tradition of music, or support that in the temple as well. In the New Testament, we see that tradition continued. We read about Jesus and his disciples. We have the account of them singing on occasions. Paul was a very strong supporter and admonished the congregation to continue singing the hymns. And that passage that most people still even today know in the Bible, the 1 Corinthians chapter 13, is a hymn So it is part of our tradition. And if we look at our tradition here in Topsfield Congregational Church, we use this red hymnal. This is the Methodist hymnal. You open it, you won't see anything Methodist there. I think the page was removed. Must have taken a huge amount of work to cover up that we use a Methodist hymnal in the Congregational Church. I'm fine with it. I don't think it was necessary to remove that page. I want to first today acknowledge and thank everyone involved in the music program of our church. I want to thank the staff, and then especially the choir and the bell choir, and everybody that on occasion brings to us their gift of music and voice, instrument and voice. Thank you for that. You form an important, and for me, one of the better parts or the best part of what happens inside this meeting house, or this sanctuary. Singing in the choir, especially, is a great or a huge commitment. It's a rehearsal on Thursday evenings, and then Sunday you have to be here at 8:30 to rehearse. And the idiom to preach to the choir did not occur out of thin air. The choir is here every Sunday. Most churches that can afford it today, because nobody or very few people are inclined to commit to singing in a choir. Most churches that can afford it have paid voices to sing in their choir and to constitute the core of the choir. We are fortunate that we are able to still have a music program where that is not necessary. And therefore I want to thank the choir. Until the time that Joel decided that, and at the request of choir members, that they want to recess and sit with their families, and also that he wanted to expose the children before they leave to the choir music. Until such time, the choir always had my back, in whichever way you want to interpret that. And for that, my apologies. I tried to turn around and address you now and then, but I didn't always remember. But thank you for that music, and in the hymns that the members of the church provided for us to include in this service, the request, you see different traditions. The second hymn has a Swedish melody, as Joel said, and you can see the Swedish, or is it Swedish hymn? And the melody still has the Swedish there. And Jerry Bunker's sister came all the way from Canton to be part of our service today to sing that Swedish hymn again. I was surprised that we didn't have any hymns that Luther favors. Later in the year. Okay. Yeah, I was waiting for you, Werner, to bring something of Luther in, but okay. And in the hymns, in the lyrics, we find different theologies as well. A wide spectrum of views on what the essence is, or the foundation is, of our beliefs and of our religion. Apart from the musical tradition that it comes from, like the Irish and the Swedish and the German, and some African even, and some Eastern cultures as well that we find in this Methodist hymnal. The lyrics or the words also represents different traditions. United Church of Christ, about 20 years ago, introduced a new hymnal, the New Century hymnal, a black one. The Disciples of Christ also introduced a new one, I think 25 years ago, the chalice. And we can find in those hymnals a representation also of a theological framework that is not necessarily present in our hymnal. John O'Donoghue, the Irish poet that passed away in 2008, said that the human soul thirsts for beautiful things, for beauty. Said, we seek for it in religion, in love, in landscapes, in gardening, in clothing, and in furniture. And when we find it, there is a sense of homecoming. When we find beauty in all of those things, there is a sense of homecoming for our deepest self. And my hope is that this congregation will continue to create and to promote and to live what is beautiful. But it's also beautiful in our tradition that we allow each other freedom of conscience, that we embrace different views as we embrace different traditions in our music and our worship. May this be a place where our souls find beauty and where we each experience a sense of homecoming also through the music that we become part of. Amen.